Hello, boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits podcast here. Today I'm going to show you how to make the Dr. Frankenstein Cocktail, which is the featured cocktail in today's episode. We're going to start with our shaker with ice. To that, we're going to add bourbon, 2 ounces. Next, we're going to add fresh lemon juice from the plastic lemon, 3/4 an ounce. Three-quarters of an ounce. Next, Grenadine, 1/2 ounce of Grenadine. And finally, absinthe, 1 teaspoon of absinthe. Not my favorite, but there we go. Next, we shake. Finally, we're going to strain it into a chilled coupe glass. Don't have a coupe glass. We've gone over this before. And there you have it, Dr. Frankenstein. Wow. Yeah, that's boozy. Please drink in moderation. Hope you enjoy the podcast. See ya.
If I told you this week's episode was centered around a monster who doesn't respect social norms or laws, doesn't feel guilt or remorse, doesn't show emotions, doesn't learn from his mistakes, and attempts to control others by intimidation or threatening them, you would most likely immediately think I was describing some sort of non-human creature. But maybe, after further consideration, you might begin to pin these personality traits on the creature's creator. Which brings us to an important question. Who is it we should really fear? The monster or the maker? Something to ponder while you listen to episode number 30 of the Scary Spirits podcast, The Curse of Frankenstein. Cheers.
Welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So if you're ready, let's go.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hi, I'm Karen.
and welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast, the podcast that combines the two very different but highly compatible worlds of scary films and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. How are you, Karen?
I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
I'm pretty good.
Ooh, that's an uptick.
Yeah.
Any particular reason, or are you just feeling it today?
No, just, getting shit done, feeling it.
Positive vibes all around you. Your aura is glowing.
Yes, I'm sure it is. All right, Karen, I do have a comment on last week's episode.
Oh, no.
I do need to apologize to our
Again?
listeners.
Our listener.
Our listener, yes. I would like to apologize to our listener for how loud I eat Jell-O shots.
Yeah, we probably should both apologize for that.
I couldn't edit all that shit out. They're loud. I don't know.
There's always room for Jell-O.
And I caught myself talking with my mouth full maybe a couple times too. So I apologize.
Well, we'll see if anyone forgives you.
Okay.
If you forgive Greg, email him at greg@scaryspirits.com.
Yeah, say, Greg, don't worry about it, bro. It's okay.
It's Karen's fault. She picked the Jell-O shots.
Or say, what a slob. Greg, you're such a slob.
No.
All right, Karen, I believe this was my choice, this week's movie.
It was, yes.
So the movie I've chosen for this week is from 1957, Karen. The Curse of Frankenstein, the Hammer film.
Have you seen it before?
I have not.
I thought I had, but I hadn't.
I hadn't either. I think I've seen another one in the series, but not this one. You know what I mean?
I would have told you, yes, I've seen it, I think, but I hadn't, at least not all the way through.
Because after this came the Revenge of Frankenstein and then the Evil of Frankenstein. And there are several more, but I'm guessing it might have been those, or even like the Horror of Frankenstein, which was even later. So I don't know, but I've seen one of them, but not this one.
Well, it's good to go back to the beginning to get the full background story.
I guess this is the beginning film, even though it time jumps, right?
A little. And I don't quite know how there are sequels after it, but we can get there.
I don't either. We also have a cocktail for this film, Karen.
Oh, Lord, do we ever.
Yes, the cocktail I have chosen is called the Dr. Frankenstein.
Which is appropriate.
Appropriate.
But
Yes.
a little much. I'm going to say it's going to get you there. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I didn't know why they called it a Dr. Frankenstein before I made it. I think it may make you go crazy or something if you drink too much of it. So that is why, I'm sure.
Well, what's in it?
So we're going to need 2 ounces of bourbon,
Yes.
3/4 ounces of fresh lemon juice from the plastic lemon.
We're not going to go there about my lemons.
Going to need 1/2 ounce of grenadine and 1 teaspoon absinthe. It's a lot of booze, Karen.
It is a lot of booze.
You
It's a lot
tried
of
to
booze
warn
for
me. You tried to warn me last
I
week.
did.
But did I listen?
Do you ever?
Hell no. Would you like to know how to make it, Karen?
Absolutely.
You put all those ingredients in a shaker with ice, and then you shake, and then strain it into a chilled coupe glass, Karen.
It's pretty.
I didn't expect it to be so red, but I guess why wouldn't it?
Well, in the recipe that we put up in the recipe den, if you want to find all our recipes, they're there on the website, scaryspirits.com, in the recipe den. It says your homemade grenadine is best. Do you know how to make it?
Hell no.
No, neither do I. I just bought the bottle. I was curious. I think it's sugar water, isn't it?
Don't know. I wonder how you would make it.
Tell them to hold on and let's find out.
Hold on.
And we're back. So, to make your own grenadine, bookmark this right here so you'll always know. You'll always come back and know where it is. You're going to need 2 cups pomegranate juice. Would you have guessed that, Karen?
No,
2 cups granulated sugar
that I would have guessed.
and 1 to 2 dashes of orange flower water. Good luck
Wow.
finding that shit.
Yeah. Okay. Also available in bottles at your local grocery store.
Correct. Anywhere beverages are sold, pretty much, I think.
Yeah.
That's how you make it. Now we know. We've learned something new already, Karen.
I mean, we're not even 5 minutes in.
I know.
We're on fire.
So, Karen, might you have a brief synopsis of this film?
I do.
Because I never do.
And I always do. I got your back.
Please read it to us.
Story time. The Curse of Frankenstein. This Frankenstein epic finds Baron Victor Frankenstein in jail, attempting to convince his jailers that a monster he created was responsible for the crimes for which he is accused.
Yes. Accurate.
Accurate, yes. Brief and accurate.
It is an origin story, though, because it does go. Well, we'll get to it, I guess, won't we?
Maybe. I don't know how far we're going to get if we drink this drink.
That's why I'm drinking my beer, Karen. All right, Karen, are you ready to get into it?
Let's go.
All right. The Curse of Frankenstein from 1957 from Hammer Films. So, Karen, the movie opens and we have words. Words to read. The words say, more than 100 years ago, in a mountain village in Switzerland, lived a man whose strange experiments with the dead have since become legend. The legend is still told with horror the world over. It is the legend of, dramatic pause, The Curse of Frankenstein.
Nicely done.
Dun, dun, dun.
You want to know what I wrote down?
What?
A mountain village in Switzerland. I figure if we get the setting, that's good enough.
Yeah, I paused and everything so I could get all the words in. And then, Karen, we have credits.
You're going to tell us who's in it?
And then I made a note. Lots of credits. They seemed exceedingly long to me. Would you like to know who's in it?
How about just the major players?
So we have Peter Cushing as Baron Victor Frankenstein, with Melvin Hayes as young Victor.
Mm.
Robert Urquhart as Paul Krempe. And we have Hazel Court as Elizabeth. Sally Walsh as young Elizabeth. And we have Sir Christopher Lee as the creature. I think that's enough.
I
Don't
agree.
you think?
Yeah,
Unless
those are the main.
Valerie Gaunt.
Oh, the maid.
Justine, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the name of the maid. So after the credits, Karen, we hear a clock striking.
Bells ringing.
Yes. And the clock strikes 26. It rings 26 times, Karen.
Interesting.
What o'clock is that?
Isn't it just the doomsday clock?
I don't know.
Like the bells are ringing.
Well, they ring 26 times as we see a man on a horse arriving at a prison. Turns out he's a priest. I still don't know why it takes 26 bongs.
Nothing should take 26 bongs.
No. That's way too many bongs.
That's a serious problem.
And we learn that the priest is there to visit Baron Frankenstein.
Yeah, when the priest goes in, the jailer says whoever the man is raving. So he's mad, is what they're implying.
Yeah, he begins to recount his life to the priest.
He begins at the beginning.
Yes. He was
sort of.
Yeah, he's the sole survivor of his family.
Here's one of my favorite lines, because he says, I'm going to begin at the beginning. And he says, I always had a brilliant intellect.
Yeah.
I thought, okay. So he's got a high opinion of himself. But yes, his mother has passed away.
As
and
his father.
Yeah. So he's the only one left.
And apparently he comes from money.
A lot of money. Yes.
And he hires a tutor for himself.
He does, but they open on a funeral, and you do meet his aunt, who
Yes, we
has
do.
his cousin Elizabeth,
Yes.
and his mother has been paying the aunt an allowance, and
Yes.
she's very concerned that that will continue. He lets her know that yes, he will continue to pay their allowance. So,
But he also lets her know that he knows that that's all she cares about. Right.
yes. And
Before she can even ask, he says, "Don't worry.
Right. He reassures
I
her.
know the
and then-
arrangement and it will continue," or whatever.
And she suggests her young daughter, who's about 7, would make
Yeah.
a wonderful wife.
Does she?
Yeah, she does. So,
Oh, maybe she does. Maybe she does say someday she'll make someone a wonderful wife, something like that.
and yes, implying to Victor that he should.
Well, I didn't get that.
No, well, I did.
I mean, they're
And he can't
cousins.
get rid of them fast enough. He's like, yeah, I'll pay you. Bye.
Yes.
And then the tutor.
Yeah, hires a tutor for himself. And I skipped right to when they're doing experiments.
He does a voiceover. It says he likes his tutor, and his tutor was very smart. And then they basically learned everything they could learn. And then they started to go to do experiments.
Yes, and I wrote lots of bubbling flasks
Yes.
and
So do
dry
I.
ice,
Yep.
bubbling in
there's-
liquid.
And there's a stuffed puppy in the tank.
You sure it's a stuffed puppy?
Yes.
It
It's a
looked real to
stuffed
me.
animal.
It looked real
No.
to me. Yes, there's a fish tank with a puppy in it, and they bring the puppy back to life.
Well, that's a brief synopsis.
Well, they do. That's what they did.
He does. It's funny because he wipes the sweat from his brow because research is very probably thirsty work.
Thirsty work.
But they add electricity. He turns on the electricity.
Yeah,
There's
it's all
lots of
very
bubbling.
complicated. There's a whole
Yeah.
process. It's
And then they empty the fish tank and they pull the puppy out, and it's alive. And how do
Yes.
they know it's alive, Greg? Do you know what he does? Did you see what he did?
I'm sure I saw, but I don't
He hears
remember.
the heartbeat.
Yeah.
So he put up what would now be an antique stethoscope
Hmm.
to the puppy, and he hears the heartbeat.
Okay.
So you want to know why the stethoscope was invented?
Sure. Are you going to ask me how much one's worth today? Too?
No. I should, but I won't.
Hang on. Let me look that up then.
That's not fair.
Yeah. Why was the stethoscope? I mean, why? Well, I guess
Well,
to hear the inner workings of the human body would be my guess. Seems pretty obvious,
Well, it was invented in 1816.
unless
in
it was
France.
like a mistake. And they
No, it wasn't a
discovered-
mistake.
Oh,
Like penicillin, no, it wasn't a mistake. It was invented in 1816 in France by, and I'll probably butcher this name because it's French, by René Laennec.
sounds
And
good.
rumor has it he invented the stethoscope because he was not comfortable placing his ear directly on a woman's chest to hear her heartbeat.
It's very modest.
Good thing you weren't in charge. 'Cause I don't think you would have had any problem. I don't think the stethoscope
Yeah.
would have been
Let
invented.
me feel. I can't quite find it.
Yeah. Let me move around a bit. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that is.
He was quite modest for a Frenchman.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it progressed and became what it is today. But it's still a pretty rudimentary piece of equipment.
It seems like I've seen old movies where they have like a little horn kind of thing, and they put it up to their.
Well,
ear.
that's kind of what this was. It was,
Hmm.
but it was a wooden one that was flat.
Okay.
So it just caught my eye.
Okay. So after they bring the puppy back to life, the tutor, who is Paul, wants to publish their works and share it with the world.
Yeah, Paul's a little older than Victor, but it doesn't seem like very much, does it?
That's probably 10 years, probably.
Yeah,
between
but
them.
10 years at the most. They're
Like he might
fairly
have hired
similar.
him when Victor was 10 and Paul was 20, something like that.
Yeah, they don't look very different in age.
But Victor wants to wait, Karen.
Yes, he thinks they can do so much more.
Yeah, we can do better. He wants to create life rather than bring it back.
Yeah, he wants to.
Which doesn't really do, but whatever.
Well, he wants to build his own creature.
Yeah, he's not create. Well, we can
Build.
argue.
He
Maybe-
uses the word
Maybe we'll
build.
argue about this later.
He uses the word build.
Okay.
And
So-
Paul says, from what? And he says, limbs, organs, build a man, create a human. He does say create a human being. But then he says he wants to use the best parts of everyone.
Yes.
You know, the brilliant hands of an artist, the best brain, all that kind of thing.
Right.
That's his vision.
Yes.
That's what's on his vision board. And but then what do?
They steal a body of a hanged highwayman.
I said, so much for the best of everyone.
I mean, imagine he's a big dude, but he might have been, huge in size or something. But what good is that if you get like the hands of a sculptor who have little tiny hands? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So under the cover of darkness, they go to where this guy's been hanging as an example, and they just cut him down and let him fall into the wagon.
Yeah.
I don't know why I felt that was funny, but I did.
And then they take the body back to the lab and they discover that the birds have eaten the eyes and most of the head. But Victor is not worried. He doesn't want the head anyway. So he
Right.
cuts it off.
He just cuts it off.
Just cuts it off. We don't need it. I'm not going to use it anyway.
And this is where Paul starts to look a little concerned.
Yes, I said the tutor is a little repulsed, is what I said.
Yeah, he just cuts the head off with a small knife, which I actually Googled, and it can be done.
Well, sure.
It would just take a lot of effort.
Yeah, in between the right vertebrae or whatever.
I guess I was just thinking it would be hard to do that. But yeah, if you hit between the bones, you'd be okay.
Chances are the birds have done a lot of the work for you. In this,
Yeah, but not the
instance.
bone. Yeah. So what does he do
So
with the
you
head?
Googled that? You Googled.
Yeah, I
you
know.
Googled
So
how to cut off a head with a small knife.
if
Is
you
that what you
could,
Googled?
so I'm now on the FBI watch list.
Like you weren't already. You just got another ding.
I know. Well, the guy who has to listen to me, his ears perked up.
And then Victor puts the head in acid.
Well, he wraps it up and dumps it. I wrote dumps it in the handy acid vat.
Yeah.
Which are not in laboratories, people. We don't have acid vats in them.
Well, Victor does.
Well, and so did what's his name in the house on Haunted Hill.
Right. But that wasn't really a laboratory. That was
No, but it was also a vat of
it
acid.
was a winery. Wasn't it a winery or something?
I guess.
And Victor says in a few minutes, there will be no trace. So this is not the special acid, Karen, that doesn't eat bone. It eats everything.
Yeah.
Next, we see the body wrapped in a big fish tank.
It's the decapitated body.
Right. Well, it's wrapped up.
All wrapped up in white, no blood.
Victor says he's going away. He will be back the next day.
And Paul wants to stop. Paul is trying to convince him that this is not a good idea.
Yep. Next, Victor's cousin arrives.
I just wrote the love interest is moving in.
The little redheaded girl from earlier is what I wrote. And she says she is coming to live there with Victor. Nobody knows she's coming. So everyone's a little surprised.
Well, Victor supposedly knew, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't.
He wasn't
share.
there at the time.
Right.
When she arrived. And Victor has purchased some hands. Karen, that's where he went. The hands of the greatest sculptor, I wrote.
Yep, that's what he got.
And this is where I wrote that Paul begins to have second thoughts. And he says he won't help Victor anymore.
And he's also concerned about Elizabeth. That's the love interest.
Yes.
And he says her mind couldn't take the shock if she finds out what they are doing. And he does try to convince Victor
She
to
does.
stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he also tries to convince Elizabeth to leave and never return. And that's when we learn that Elizabeth and Victor are engaged.
Did you probably didn't notice this, but they full dressed for dinner. She was in a gown and he was in a tux.
Hmm.
I mean, can you imagine if you had to dress for dinner? That would blow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul tells her she won't be safe and that his experiments are dangerous.
Yes, and it is an arranged marriage.
Do you think they're first cousins?
Oh no.
They're cousins for sure.
Yeah, well, it's his
And
aunt.
I think that Paul likes Elizabeth.
I do too.
Yeah.
Next, we see Victor.
Wait, before you do that, because this is perfect timing. So
Take a
Elizabeth
drink.
says,
Is that what we're doing? Taking
yes.
a drink?
Elizabeth says it has always been her dearest wish to marry Victor, and his too. And then they cut to
Victor kissy facing with the maid, as you would
Yep.
say.
And he makes the maid call him Herr Baron. But yeah, so it was good timing with the camera. She's all mushy. Elizabeth is like, it's been our dream forever. He is just so in love with me. And then they cut right to him having a makeout session with the maid.
And then the maid is jealous, Karen.
Well, yeah. She thinks she's going to marry. He's
Yeah.
told her
Apparently.
that they're going to get married.
Next, Victor says he's going away again to buy materials for his work.
Yeah. Did you see where he went?
Municipal charnel house.
You want to know what a charnel house is?
Yeah, I wrote it down, but I don't know what the hell it is.
A charnel house is a building, chamber, or other area in which bodies or bones are deposited, also known as a mortuary chapel. Charnel houses arose as a result of the limited areas available for cemeteries. When the cemetery usage had reached its limit, the bodies, by then only bones, would be dug up and deposited in the charnel house. So it's a big mix of bones and apparently bodies, because he comes back with
Eyeballs. 2 eyeballs.
Which you wouldn't get if it was just bones. So
Nope. So then Paul the tutor comes to Victor's lab, and Victor shows him how far he has come. He's very
Victor
proud of
invited
his
him
work.
back. Yeah. And Paul thinks it's horrible.
Yeah, Paul is revolted, I wrote.
Pleads again for him to stop. And Paul thinks that if he does animate whatever it is, it's going to be evil.
But Victor says he wants to put the brain of a genius into his creature. And of course,
And when
Paul
at this point
asks, where are you going to find that? And he says, oh, I'll get it.
And did you think at this point that he was going to kill Paul?
For a second, I did.
Because the way he looked at Paul, I thought, oh my God, he's going to kill Paul.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Peter Cushing plays a sociopath extremely well. I don't know what kind of reviews this. I mean, he was totally believable as someone who only pretended to have emotions. But the way he looked at Paul, I thought, Paul's done.
This film was a tremendous financial success and reportedly grossed more than 70 times its production cost.
But the critics like it? Probably not. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying he played a sociopath really well. He conveyed it.
They didn't really like it.
The critics.
Yeah.
But didn't you think he was emotionless, except when he needed to pretend to have emotions?
He's going to do what he's going to do. You know what I mean?
Lessons learned. I wish I'd have known this before.
He's not going to let anything stand in the way of his
goal.
Work.
Yeah. So he's not going to kill Paul.
No.
But he's looking for a good brain. So where do we cut to?
Victor and Elizabeth have a professor over as a guest. Apparently a well-known professor, because Paul is very impressed when he finds out he's there.
I think they had him over for dinner.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth complains to him that she misses Victor. He does too much research. And Elizabeth says the professor has the greatest brain in all of Europe. And then I thought, uh-oh.
And then
things look bad for the professor.
And then Victor says, let me show you to your room or something. They go upstairs.
The professor says something that probably won't mean that much to you, but he actually said, scientists tire of their discoveries and hand them off to people who aren't ready for them, which is true. Research never ends. Even if you find something, everybody's like, oh, that's great. Okay, find something else. So you're never done.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of time they've got an answer, but people don't understand it, but they move on anyway. I just thought it was rather profound to be in this film to say something like that. But the professor goes off with Victor.
Yes. And they go upstairs onto a landing, a railed landing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Victor shows the professor a painting hanging on the wall. And says, if you scoot back some, you get a better view of the entire piece or something, some bullshit like that. And when he does, Victor pushes him over the landing and he gone.
Did you see him land? I replayed that. His neck I mean, it's obviously a stunt
I
double.
remember it being very contorted.
Yeah, and it looked like the ground was rubber because the
Hmm.
way the stunt double hit, I swear it looked like he broke his neck. But you see a much younger man on the ground
Hmm.
there.
And then we have a funeral. And
And
Victor has the professor's body put into his family vault.
what a nice guy.
And all the other scientists are very grateful for him doing that. So, of course, Victor removes the brain of the professor.
That night, time's a wasting. Let's go.
And Paul confronts him. They struggle, and the jar with the brain breaks, Karen.
Yeah, he had removed the brain and put it in a glass jar.
Now, shards of glass in it and all kinds of shit, right?
That's not good. The
Yep.
brain is damaged. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
It's not the brilliant brain it was.
Nope.
Although without oxygen, it wasn't the brilliant brain anyway. But okay, go ahead.
And then Paul once again tries to get Elizabeth to leave the house.
He bursts into her bedroom. She was in bed.
As you do.
I don't think back then you did. But Paul stays in the house because of Elizabeth. He won't leave her there alone with Victor.
Next, we see Victor picking pieces of glass out of the brain.
Yeah. So when he pulls it out, it's
with
like
his
clink.
tweezers.
Yes. Clink.
But he still puts it in the creature. We never did find out where he found the head, did we?
No, because he doesn't put the head on. He just puts the brain in there. But I guess it's implied that he's collecting parts.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a thunderstorm, Karen. And we see
Storm is a brewing.
Bubbling flasks again.
Well, yeah. He turns all the levers on.
But he has to do it by himself this time, which I think he thinks screws some stuff up, right?
Well, that or it's pretty much the same setup as the puppy.
Yeah.
And the body's a lot bigger than the puppy. So you'd think it would need a little more juice.
But he was doing something on one end of the lab while Paul was doing the big wheels on the other to generate, I assume, electricity or some shit.
Yeah, you're right. He can't quite get it right.
Yeah, he
leaves. He thinks he's failed.
Yeah,
it didn't work.
It's failed as the water is draining out of the huge fish tank. And he goes to Paul and asks for his help again. He goes, he can't do it by himself. His process is much too complex for one man to do, Karen. That is the error in his ways right there. So all the water drains out of the tank, and then lightning strikes the laboratory. And we see the monster.
Well, it turns everything on.
Breathe.
Yeah. The creature breathes.
And in the meantime, Paul agrees to help. They go down to the laboratory.
Okay, but why did he agree to help? Do you remember? Because Victor threatens to involve Elizabeth. So Paul protects Elizabeth. And when they're arguing, Victor says nothing is more important than the experiment. So he would definitely throw Elizabeth under the bus. So Paul says, okay, fine, I'll help you.
They get to the laboratory and they're smashing glass. And the monster stands and removes the bandages from his face. And he begins to strangle Victor.
Immediately just goes to choke him.
And then Paul arrives and saves Victor. And Victor blames Paul for the damaged brain.
Yeah, he does blame Paul.
This is all your fault.
After Paul rescues Victor, the creature just falls to the ground unconscious. I don't know what happened there.
Mm-hmm. And Paul tries to convince Victor to destroy the monster.
But he won't.
Nope. The laboratory is all smashed up and the monster escapes out a window.
Yeah, Paul was packing to leave. He was done. And
once again, Victor goes and asks for his help again.
Well, Victor lies and says he's going to go tell the people in the town to help look for him, to look for the creature.
Yeah.
And so they go off to look. Paul doesn't want the creature to hurt anyone because when this creature wakes up, he chooses violence.
So they go look for the monster. And here's where I made a note. It's 50 minutes into the movie before we see the monster.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah, the runtime is 83 minutes and we don't see the monster for the first 50. Then we're in a forest, Karen. And a boy is guiding his blind grandfather on a hike.
Well, they're collecting mushrooms.
Are they?
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Okay. The boy leaves his grandfather and goes to the shore of a lake, ? I wrote.
Well, I think it's a creek and there are mushrooms growing there. So he's got a bag and he says to his grandpa, who's obviously an old gentleman, and he says, and blind, and he says, sit here, grandpa, it's not too far. I'll do it. So he runs off and he's collecting the mushrooms on the bank of the creek.
Yep. Then the monster arrives.
Which he's got clothes on now. How does he know? Well, he had clothes on before. Well,
Yeah,
no, he was
did.
all wrapped up in bandages.
Was
So
he?
now he's in.
When he strangled Victor, he was all wrapped up.
Because he took off his bandages on his head, remember?
Uh-huh.
And when he shows up in the forest, he's completely dressed like a gentleman.
Odd. Yeah.
Yeah.
The monster arrives and the blind old man tries to get away, but trips. And the old man screams, and then the little boy comes running to help his grandfather. And here's where I wrote, the monster's face is all scarred and rotten, but his hands look normal. I guess because of the hands of the sculptor are pristine.
I don't know. No calluses.
That's what I thought.
Who knows?
So Victor and Paul arrive and they begin to track the monster through the woods.
Well, do you think he killed the kid?
I don't know. Well, it doesn't show him killing anybody.
No, it doesn't. True.
So,
but the old man was screaming.
Yes.
And he's blind. So something must have been. It's not because he was seeing the creature. Something was happening.
Yeah. I think you're supposed to assume that the monster killed the old man.
But the little boy drops his mushroom bag and goes running to the grandpa. And then we don't see anything else.
Yeah. So Paul and Victor find the monster. Paul raises his gun to shoot, but Victor stops him. The monster comes toward them and Paul shoots it right in the eye, right in the right eye.
That's a good shot.
Yep. So then they bury the monster out there in the woods.
In a shallow grave in the woods.
Yep. As you do.
I mean, we all know what's going to happen here, but okay.
Well, I don't know.
You didn't know?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know for sure.
How many more minutes were left in the movie? And you didn't know what was going to happen here?
Not exactly.
I knew.
And Victor tells Paul he will never forgive him for what he has done.
But Paul does what he had to do, you know?
Yep. And that's exactly what I have. Paul comes and says that he's leaving. He has done what he had to do.
Yeah, he doesn't need to stay anymore to protect Elizabeth because the creature's dead.
But Victor has the monster back in his laboratory.
Because of course he dug it up. Of course he did.
Well, I didn't know if he dug it up or if it dug itself up. I didn't know what was going to happen exactly. You know?
He was shot in the eyeball, which meant the bullet went through his brain. He's dead. Well, I guess he was dead before. So who knows? You're right, I guess.
I thought he was going to.
I assumed Victor was going to
dig himself out of the grave and wreak havoc on the town. I didn't know.
True. Okay. My mind went to Victor was going to dig him up, but you're right. That could have happened.
And Victor's going to bring him back to life. Then the maid confronts Victor about marrying her. She tells him she is pregnant, Karen.
Yeah. And he insults her and says anyone in the village could be the father.
Yes.
I'm telling you, he is.
But she threatens to tell
cold.
Elizabeth and the authorities about what he is, more importantly, and the authorities probably about what he is doing in his laboratory.
She tries to blackmail him, marry her, or she'll tell.
Yeah, I don't understand that logic, but
I know letting someone know that beforehand is poor execution of a plan. Because she vows she's going to get proof. Because he says, what are you going to tell? And she says, I'll get proof.
And Victor tells her he wants her out of the house by morning. Yeah, she says she's going to get proof. Next, we see the maid in a nightgown going upstairs.
Your favorite kind of nightgown, the white see-through kind.
Yeah, it's all right.
But she watches the light go out in the lab and Victor leaves. And I thought, why did he not lock the door? Because he knows she wants proof.
Yes, and
she
is waiting outside. Yes. So the maid enters the laboratory and starts looking around. Then she goes into the locked room and finds the monster. Then Victor locks her in.
He is cold.
She screams. She gone. Next, we see Victor and Elizabeth. I believe they're eating breakfast, but I cannot be sure. They're eating marmalade. I'm not sure what marmalade is for.
Well, it could be tea, I suppose. Like tea and biscuits or...
Yes. And Elizabeth says, we haven't heard anything from
Justine.
It's been 10 days. And then they begin talking about their wedding.
He switches the subject to the wedding.
Okay.
And because he knows she'll want to talk about the wedding.
Yeah. I think he said something about her. She probably met someone or something, ran off, did something.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. Again, he's discrediting her.
As they do.
And Elizabeth tells Victor that she has invited Paul to their wedding. And Victor is pleased because he says there is something I want Paul to see. Next, we're at the reception the night before the wedding, which I don't understand.
They're just having a pre-wedding party.
Okay. So you're going to have a pre-wedding party, then a wedding, and then a reception after the wedding too?
I don't know.
All right. But Paul
People
doesn't
like to party.
Okay. But Paul didn't make it to the reception. And I think Victor says, it's a pity that Paul didn't come.
And he goes to work.
Yes. But then Paul arrives after everyone else has left. He's late. Elizabeth tells Paul that Victor had something he wanted him to see. She tells him to go up and surprise him.
And she's thrilled to see Paul. She's very happy he's there.
Yeah. Victor tells Paul that he has started brain surgery. And he takes him to the room with the monster, or Sir Christopher Lee. The creature, I guess is what he is. The creature.
Yeah. And Paul wants to leave.
Yeah, but Victor shows Paul how he has trained the creature to do tricks.
He's trained him like a dog.
Yeah.
He's chained up. The creature is chained up to a post. And he's telling him to sit and stay.
Get
basically.
Up, come and sit. And Paul is not impressed. Again, Victor blames Paul for damaging the brain. It's all his fault.
Yeah, and Victor says he's never going to give up. He's going to get another brain and another brain and another brain until it works. And again, I thought he was going to kill Paul and take his brain. Yeah,
and Paul tells Victor he's going to the authorities. He's had enough. Victor chases after Paul. Then we see Elizabeth going upstairs. And I made a note that the banister is still missing.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it's still gone. There's not even like some caution tape or anything here. It's just nothing.
No crime tape.
No. Not even a rope or a chain. There's nothing there.
I guess, well, if you don't have a brilliant brain, you're okay.
And Elizabeth goes into the laboratory.
We could make it to the laboratory just fine.
Then the monster pulls the chain out of the wall, or the post, as you said, in the wall. Elizabeth hears the chains in the next room. She's in the laboratory, and she goes to investigate.
With an oil lamp.
Yes. Cut back to Victor and Paul. And Victor tells Paul that if he tells the authorities, Elizabeth will be the first one to suffer. That's struggle.
Cold.
And Paul sees the monster on the roof. He runs off to tell the authorities. Victor runs into the house.
Why does Elizabeth go on the roof?
Don't know.
I mean, did she not see the creature?
Here's what I wrote.
Okay.
Elizabeth goes out on the roof to investigate. That's why she goes out there. I don't know. But Victor runs up and grabs a gun from his laboratory. The monster.
Laboratories don't have guns either, but proceed.
Well, it's a good thing he does.
Yeah. Well, sort of.
The monster grabs Elizabeth. Victor fires once and hits Elizabeth. I think right in the arm.
Like the shoulder, I think. But yeah.
Well, Victor, he's not a fighter. He's a lover. He doesn't know how to fire a gun.
Certainly not as good a shot as Paul.
Oh, hell no. Victor fires again and hits the monster. Then the monster.
So what kind of gun was that?
Begins to come after Victor.
Only 2 shots in it. Didn't it look like a pistol? Does a pistol have 2 shots?
Yes. It could have been like a flintlock. I don't remember.
Okay.
But
I just expected there to be more shots.
This is pre, like cylinder revolvers. Okay. They had dual barrel guns or rifles with, 2 flint locks.
Yeah, but this looked like a small gun.
They made pistols like it too.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Haven't you ever been on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, Karen?
No, I have not.
Then you have to go through the gift shop and you see all those guns for sale as toys.
Awesome.
At least you did when I was a kid. I don't know. They may not sell them anymore. I'm pretty sure I had one.
But after he fires the 2 shots, he throws the gun at the creature, which I thought was kind of funny. So that's not going to do anything if a bullet didn't stop him.
But then he throws the oil lamp.
Yes.
Onto the creature, and it bursts into flames. Falls through the window into the vat of acid.
The strategically placed vat of acid.
Yes, right under the window. Next, we cut back to the prison, and Victor has finished recounting his tale, I guess. And he says that after half an hour, the monster was gone, dissolved in the acid, Karen.
Yep, even his
never
bones.
To be seen again.
It's pretty intense acid.
So Paul goes to see Victor in the prison. Paul arrives, and Victor tries to get Paul to tell them about the creature, that the creature killed the maid. Paul remains quiet. He just looks at him.
Why does Victor think Paul is going to help him?
I don't know.
That's, I guess, a sociopath.
Victor begins to strangle Paul. The guards rush in.
Which is not going to help his case.
And stop him, yes. Well, in the very beginning, doesn't he do something to the priest too? And he apologizes for some shit? I don't know. Paul leaves Victor's cell and goes, and we find that Elizabeth is there as well.
So she survived her gunshot.
Yes. It's just a flesh wound. Paul tells Elizabeth that there is nothing they can do for him now, and he takes her home.
So those two are going to be together.
I think so. Then we see the guards leading Victor down the hall, and we see a guillotine, Karen.
So really what he's convicted of is just the death of the maid. That's the only thing he got in trouble for. Because the creature is gone. So, they don't know what he's been doing.
Well, if the old man died, they could have put that on him too.
Right. But nobody knows. That guy just ended up dead in the forest. So it was an interesting twist kind of at the end.
Yes. And then we have credits.
Well, I'm saying that it took me a second at the end to realize that he was being charged because the creature had fallen into the acid and was gone. So there, his story sounds insane. It was a good little twist at the end, that all of this happened, but nobody can prove it.
Yeah. No one saw the monster except for he, Paul, and Elizabeth that lived to tell about it. Right.
Unless the little boy lived, but he could have just found his dead grandpa if he killed his grandpa. So the only people that could save him did not save him. I just thought it was a nice little twist at the end.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, I think I told you I watched it before you did. It's not the classic Frankenstein story, is it really?
Not the traditional. No, he still builds a creature, but the story surrounding it is a little different. It's almost like a murder mystery, like a riddle. Like, how could this happen? And you would never say, oh, well, the creature fell into a vat of acid.
Yeah, it is a nice little twist on the story.
It's like you have to keep this one aspect. You have to keep that Frankenstein's going to build a monster out of parts, because that's pretty much what the main story is about. But you can do whatever you want otherwise. What would you come up with? And there's lots of money. That's another thing that's in a lot of stories, is there's an unending amount of cash available. because otherwise you couldn't do it. And you don't have supervision. It's like Batman. Parents are gone, lots of money. Nobody's watching what you're doing.
Oh, he has someone watching him. Batman does.
Well, so does Victor.
Lucius Fox.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Alfred, because I was
No,
going to say
Lucius Fox and Alfred. So he really has two,
but I'm saying he has all this money. That's his money.
Mm-hmm.
And no one really supervising.
Right.
He gets to spend his money however he wants to.
Well, as he should. You
in a
be able to
laboratory.
spend your money on whatever the hell you want.
I know, but when you're a kid and you inherit all that money.
Well, by the time he's doing this, he's not a kid anymore.
I know.
He's a grown-ass man.
It's just kind of a
Paul should have tutored him in
ethics.
Ethics. And
if you're a sociopath, I don't think any of that really rings true. You can pretend to have ethics when you need to, and that's what they're good at. Whoever wrote the part wrote it well for that type of disorder.
What do you mean, Mary Shelley?
No, in this movie, well, maybe, I don't know. I've never read Frankenstein. Have you read the book?
Isn't it ended the same kind of story?
I'm sure it's the same story.
As far as ethics and...
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure. Playing God, yes.
Playing God, yeah.
Yeah.
There are lots of movies about playing God. All right, Karen, anything you were pleasantly surprised by in this 1957 Hammer production starring Sir Christopher Lee?
Was it really starring Sir Christopher Lee?
He didn't have any lines, did he? I don't think.
And he didn't show up until, what did you say, 50 minutes
50
in?
minutes, yeah.
I think I've touched on it. I just think that Peter Cushing plays an excellent sociopath. Because there were times where I was wondering if he was going to kill Paul or even kill Elizabeth.
And this is the first time we, while doing this podcast, have seen him as a villain.
Yes. He's usually the hero.
Yeah, he's Van Helsing in the other film we saw, which is he kills Dracula.
So he was a good villain, I thought.
Yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised by that.
Anything you were disappointed in?
I don't know. Not really. The makeup on Christopher Lee was a little odd, but for the time it was probably okay. You know?
I think they purposely didn't want to redo the 30s Universal film, right?
Yeah. Well, they didn't want to get sued, right? Did people sue back then?
I mean, I'm sure Mary Shelley's novel was in, I don't know, I think it's in the public domain. I mean, you don't think they had to pay for the rights for this shit, do you?
I don't know.
Interesting.
I wasn't really disappointed I mean, I didn't expect much, so it was better than I expected. So I thought it was good for its genre, you know.
I was disappointed that the guillotine we didn't see it come.
Well, then you can't have sequels. Greg.
But it was like a shadow or something, wasn't it? And not all we saw was like a shadow of a guillotine.
Yeah, we didn't even see it in action.
Yeah,
I think it was.
That's what I'm saying. Is I would have liked to have seen it in action, even as they're walking up.
Oh, so yeah, then hear the sound.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see Victor's reaction or Peter Cushing's reaction, and
because if you blinked, you would have missed it. Kind of, you wouldn't have known that that's where he was going.
Yeah.
But that's why I was wondering how there could be sequels, because they implied that he was guillotined. So I don't know. Did Peter Cushing revive his role? Is it him? Or does Paul take over because he feels so guilty? Although he didn't look too guilty.
So the next film comes out a year later. The Revenge of Frankenstein stars Peter Cushing.
Oh, there you go. He must have escaped. Well, they don't have to have Christopher Lee again, right?
Yeah, he's not in this one.
Because if he rebuilds a monster, it could be anyone.
Yeah, there's a new body. Oh, so, well, I don't want to tell you what happens, but
okay.
Victor's very, clever. Sounds like the sequel takes up where this one leaves off.
Well, he must escape then.
He must.
Somehow.
Yes, apparently he does.
What about you? What did you like about it?
Well, Sir Christopher Lee was in it.
Yeah, but that was such a small part of it.
And he's not in he's not in, I'm looking at these other sequels, and he's not in them either.
Well, he could have been anyone. I mean, he didn't even really have to act.
Yeah. Peter Cushing's good in it. I like Peter Cushing. I liked Paul. I liked Elizabeth too. Even though I kind of think she's gullible, stupid.
Well, she was in love. So she believed
she's in love with someone she hasn't seen.
Well, that's true. And I think she was
doesn't even
really in love
recognize
with Paul. Yeah. Right. She confuses.
Doesn't know who's Victor.
Yeah. She walks in and talks to Paul like he's Victor. But I think she actually loved Paul.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure they end up living happily ever after and having a bunch of ginger children. Yeah. That's it. I would like to have seen the guillotine.
Oh, that's true. You said that. Like I said, it was better than I thought it was going to be. Your drink, on the other hand, is just what I thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, what cocktail rating are we going to give this film? How many cocktails did it take you to get through this film, Karen?
How many of these cocktails? About a quarter of one, because I can't do it.
I don't know.
It's too much for me.
I'm still working on my first one. I'm almost done with it.
That's impressive.
So what do you want to give it?
I'd say we give it a 3.
A half?
No. I mean, it's good. I know I say this a lot, but it's a good movie for its genre. You know, if you're going to watch this movie, I think you're prepared for what it's going to be like. So I don't think you're going to be disappointed in this movie. If you're looking to watch an exceptional horror film, you're not going to pick this one. So for its genre, I'd say it's as good as any other we've watched like this.
Okay.
I mean, if we gave Maniac 3 or, then we can't, I think we should, it's pretty standard.
So 3, your average.
That's what I say. What do you think?
Yeah, I can go with that.
There's nothing exceptionally good
right.
or bad.
It does have it is a nice twist on the story. I do like that.
Yeah, it was original, creative.
That, it starts in the prison and the whole film is Victor pleading his case, trying to convince this priest that it's not his fault. He didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, it's a good little mystery. How, I mean, you wouldn't guess it was a creature that was dissolved in a vat of acid, but it does have a little bit of a twist, which is nice. Okay. He's going down for crimes committed by the creature that he created. So is he responsible? He is still responsible. And he did plan her murder. He just didn't commit it, but he did plan it. So he is responsible in that way. He locked her in.
Okay.
Knowing what was going to happen to her. So he's not innocent.
No, not completely. All right. Now, comments on the drink. Any other comments on the drink?
It's a strong one, people. Yeah, it's a little much for me.
Yeah, it's too much for me too. And that's saying something.
I wonder if we diluted it with
absinthe is not my favorite.
Yeah, either. I can even it's sitting here, I can smell it. The absinthe. I don't mind the absinthe. I think it's just too much alcohol. I need a mixer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we would not suggest this drink. Is that what we're saying?
Well, I think if you like bourbon straight with a little bit of embellishment, I think you'd like it. Mm.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to get someone there quickly, this is a good drink for it. It depends on your tastes. And I like bourbon, but I need a mixer. And this is a little strong for me.
Yeah. I thought the
3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice would take care of that for you, Karen. Apparently not.
Not quite. Not quite.
And the grenadine, I mean, it's not alcohol.
No. Take your last sip.
Almost. All right, Karen, anything we learned today?
Well, we learned a lot.
Yeah, we learned how to make grenadine.
Make our own grenadine, which we're not going to do. We learned why the stethoscope was invented and where and by whom.
Yeah.
And when.
Yeah.
And we learned about
I'm going to try to bring that up in conversation tomorrow at work.
When someone says, I just feel a little uncomfortable putting my ear to the chest of a woman. What should I do? You could say, well, you know. And we also learned what a charnel house was.
Yeah.
And they still exist today, by the way.
What do you mean they still exist today?
They are still around today.
You're talking about like when a cemetery gets full and they want to resell the plots or something?
Yeah.
They take people who've been buried there for 200 years and put them in a charnel house.
They could. Or there's cultures that do it. Native American Indians are one of the ones that I read about that have used that system.
Yeah, I had no idea.
There are famous ones, churches and things.
Like the catacombs in Paris, that kind of like a charnel
Maybe
thing.
I don't know if that's the same, but there were walls of skulls and things in them. I think if you were a distinguished guest of the cemetery, your bones, or at least your skull, was placed in a different spot than the rest, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of skulls and bones, today I put away what little Halloween decorations I put out this year, Karen. And I once again fit a 6-foot or a 5-foot skeleton into a 55-gallon plastic bag. So I got that going for me. A couple zip ties, good to go.
Every year you get a little more efficient at it until, it'll be second nature.
Yep. All right, anything else we learned?
I brought the knowledge this time.
I know you did. You always do, though.
Well, this time I had some real
Dr. Karen.
Real facts. Things that you can bring up in casual conversation.
Yeah.
At your next party.
Stethoscope.
Especially if you're drinking one of these drinks, you're going to start babbling away.
Yes, you would. All right, Karen. I believe the next film is your choice. Is it not?
It is.
Go on.
I've chosen the 1931 film Frankenstein. So we're going to compare the Hammer film with the Universal film.
Contrast and compare. Isn't that what they used to say in high school, Karen?
Yes, compare and contrast these two things. I don't think we'll lecture you on it, but it'll be a little, I bet the stories are very different. So,
well, yeah, I'm sure they are, because one is loosely based on Mary Shelley's novel and one is more so based on Mary Shelley's novel.
Less loosely based?
Well,
hard to say. Like I said, I haven't read it.
Well, it's actually, I'm just looking at online, and it's actually based on a play, much like Dracula, which is based on Mary Shelley's novel. Much like Dracula was based on a play based on the Bram Stoker novel, right?
So 2 degrees of separation from the book.
Yeah. So I've learned something already. Didn't know that.
Look at you dropping the knowledge.
Mm-hmm. It's got one of your favorite actors in it, Karen. Well, maybe we'll talk about it next week. Do you have a cocktail for the Universal film Frankenstein, Karen?
I do, which is a little similar to the one we had today.
Is it?
But not. It's called the Lightning Bolt.
Yes.
Which I thought was very clever.
Yes.
And you're going to need 3 parts bourbon, 1 part amaretto, 2 parts sour mix, and 6 parts citrus soda. So it's got bourbon,
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to like this one.
I love amaretto.
So you're going to pour the ingredients over ice, stir, serve, and enjoy.
Enjoy. That's my favorite part, Karen, enjoying.
And it's from cocktails.fandom.com. All of the Frankenstein drinks, if you search it up, if you Google that shit, are strikingly similar. So it took me a while to find something that was different.
Yes, there it is. Description. It'll knock you out. That's what it says.
Does it?
Yeah, it's a variation of the popular amaretto sour, though it has a higher alcohol content.
Because you add the bourbon?
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm not a bourbon guy, but I do like my amaretto. All right, Karen. Anybody you need to thank?
Well, I'm going to thank Kristen, who I know binged listened on her Florida vacation. So we appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Kristen. I hope you enjoyed listening to us converse
while watching the
stupidly.
Waves.
While laying on a beach.
That's the perfect time to
listen.
listen.
Getting nice and bronze. That's what you do.
Yeah, I don't think you would have invented the stethoscope. I'm just going to say.
Well, I do need to thank, once again, the band Verse 13, letting us use their music in the podcast. All their info is linked in the show notes, as usual.
Thank you, Verse 13.
Anything else, Karen?
Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Scary Spirits podcast, where the movies might be iffy, but the drinks are always solid. We would love to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast, or go to our website, scaryspirits.com. And if you want the direct line, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. If you really want to help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And remember, always drink responsibly. See you next week.